Yes, folks, the word woke is nothing more than a euphemism for the term left-wing insanity. Yes, the left consider themselves to be woke. That is, they consider themselves to be aware and informed, especially in relation to social and justice issues. The problem is this: they can't be woke because everything they do and say is driven by emotion as opposed to rational thought. Everything bad has to be good because it feels good. Everything wrong has to be right because it feels right. In other words, left-wing insanity. Now take Iowa's woke Attorney General's office, for example. They are releasing a serial pedophile sex offender who has molested 15 kids aged 1 to 13 because he identifies as a woman. Have a look.
The Iowa Attorney General's office, this is the Des Moines Register. The Iowa Attorney General's office is no longer seeking the commitment of a former Midwest Christian Services student convicted of myriad sex crimes because the individual now identifies as a woman. Court records show the state dismissed the application on January 9th. Attorney General spokesman Lynn Hicks wouldn't comment on the reason for the dismissal other than to say an offender's hormone levels are an important part of substantiating an offender's likelihood of recidivism. In November, the Storm Lake Times reported that Joseph Matthew Smith, a 23-year-old convicted of molesting a fellow MCS student in 2014, was undergoing medical treatment that is needed prior to potentially undergoing gender reassignment surgery. Smith has received treatment for gender reassignment over the past 2 years at Newton Correctional Facility. She first expressed, now I'm reading the article, so I'm going to be using the pronoun she to describe this man, but every time I say she, in your head, put the scare quotes around it, okay? She first expressed a desire to get started on transgender classification in October 2017 and started using female pronouns. Smith has expressed a preference to identify as Josie, according to court documents. Hicks said that we don't believe we have evidence sufficient to prove Josie Smith has a significant chance of reoffending. An Iowa Department of Corrections spokesman said Smith was transferred on Saturday to the Sioux City Residential Treatment Facility for transitional release. Hicks cautioned the public not to overreact to Smith's upcoming release. Smith will be subject to sex offender registration for the rest of her life, Hicks said, which includes regular meetings with a probation officer and a listing on an attorney general clearinghouse. So don't worry. Yes, he's a serial sex offender, but he's going to be on a list, and he's going to have meetings. So don't be concerned. Josie Smith, according to Hicks, says will be subject to strict sex offender reporting required of those who commit the crime she did. She'll be subject to supervision for the rest of her life. A preliminary report prepared by the state's expert, Dr. Jeffrey Davis, says Smith molested as many as 15 victims, ranging from ages 1 to 13, before being sentenced to prison in December 2015. The report found the likelihood of reoffending within 5 years of release exceeded 20% because victims were of both genders and because Smith was under the age of 25 and never had a long-term relationship. Smith has not had an intimate relationship, the report says. His sexual encounters appeared to have primarily involved molestation, including his own molestation by multiple perpetrators or his victimization of others. He was molested as a child starting at the age of 7. Okay. And then it goes on from there. I'm saying if there's any other details here that are important. Dr. Tracy Thomas, a forensic psychologist, said that the statute that outlines civil commitment requires the state to essentially prove an offender has a chance offending greater than 51% for the rest of his life. That becomes harder to prove when an offender significantly lowers his testosterone levels, which has a significantly higher impact on sex drive than estrogen. Okay. Where do we even begin? As I said, there are many layers of this putrid, rancid onion. So in no particular order, let's start here. First of all, it's not even true that this dude, this male individual, this male scumbag, I should say, it's not true that he's less likely to reoffend because he transitioned to a female, quote unquote. That's simply not true. In fact, they actually did a study on this, a legitimate study, the longest and most involved study of its kind, as far as I know, where it involved 324 people over the course of 30 years. And they looked at whether there was any change in several different things, but including criminality, reduction in crime, including violent crimes, for transgenders who transition from male to female. And they found, no, they found that these male to females retain the same rate of violent crime as regular males.
But that can't be right because it doesn't feel right.
Probably because they're still male at the end of the day. Second, even if it was true, it's beside the point. Even if it was true that his chances of reoffending have now been somewhat or even significantly diminished because he's on these hormone pills, that would still be beside the point. It's irrelevant because we're missing something here, and it's a big thing, and that thing is called justice. The point of prison is not simply to segregate dangerous people so that when they're supposedly not dangerous anymore, we can release them. That's not the whole point. That's part of the point. Segregation of dangerous people is part of the point of prison. It's not the entire point. Not even close to the entire point. And it's not the main point. If it was, then why is somebody like, I don't know, Bernie Madoff still in prison? He's probably not a danger to anybody anymore. Is he still? If he's still alive, is he still alive? I'm not sure. But if he is, he's probably not a danger to anybody anymore. Yeah, he scammed hundreds of people out of their life savings, but probably he wouldn't be able to do it again after he's famous for doing it the first time. And so release him from prison, put him on a scam artist registry, and then he can go about his life. We could have a registry for everything. A murderer registry, car thief registry.
Exactly. But that doesn't matter because releasing him feels good to the emotionally driven left. After all, transgenders are the victim group of the day.
No need for prisons anymore. In fact, with murder, think about it just as a hypothetical example, but one that has many analogous cases. Think about someone, say a man in his 50s, who murders his wife in a fit of passion after finding out that she cheated on him, okay? What are the chances that that guy will kill somebody else? He's not a serial killer. He's not even necessarily a psychopath. Let's say he lived the first 50 years of his life, never hurt anybody. So what are the chances that he does it again? Probably less than, I would say significantly less than 50%. So if you're letting this guy out of prison, why put people who murder others in a crime of passion in prison? Their risk of killing again is pretty low, probably. Well, that doesn't work. Because, for one thing, being on a registry, having your name on a database, doesn't do a single damn thing to prevent you from committing a crime. For another, it's not only about crime prevention, it's about justice.
Yes, it's about justice. And ironically, these so-called woke justice warriors know nothing about justice because they always afford justice to the criminals and not the victims. Anyway, now to some more woke insanity.
Elizabeth Warren also made another promise about how she will govern if elected. In a recent blog post, she said that as president, she'll appoint a cabinet that, quote, reflects the full diversity of America, including having at least 50% of cabinet positions filled by women and non-binary people. What exactly is a non-binary person? Does America have enough non-binary people to staff half a cabinet? And by the way, more to the point, how is being non-binary a qualification to run a federal agency? Dave Rubin hosts the Rubin Report on YouTube. He joins us to unravel these mysteries. Dave, thanks so much for coming on. That's kind of the core question. What does being non-binary have to do with running a federal agency?
Well, first off, Tucker, this is the first time I've ever been brought in as a non-binary expert, so I appreciate that. Look, all of this
I don't even
is
know.
so
I'm afraid to
indicative.
ask what it means, but yes.
It doesn't even matter. Suffice to say that all of this is exactly what's wrong with almost every progressive idea that's put out there. Like canceling all student debt, you then hurt the people who paid off their debt or who acted responsibility.
Right.
Hiring 50% women or non-binary or minorities or this color or that color. It all kind of sounds right, but here's the catch, and this happens with every progressive idea. You just have to think about it for about 3 seconds. And then once you think about it, you realize, oh, well, if we're going to have diversity hires of this type or that type, well, that means you intentionally must discriminate against someone else by the basis of their gender or sexuality or skin color.
Again, that doesn't matter because the people you mentioned there are not the victims of the day. And we good woke folk only feel good about helping our victims of the day. Anyway, now for some more wokeness from Elizabeth Warren.
Well, Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign is collapsing. You'd think that would be traumatic for Elizabeth Warren, but you'd be wrong. Actually, for Warren, it's a liberating moment. As she gets more desperate, all restraints fall away. She can be as woke as she wants. She can say whatever she wants. Put people in jail for spreading disinformation? Sure, she's for that. Ban fracking nationwide by executive order? Sure. Cripple our only functioning economic sector? Yeah. But she also has ideas that you've never even heard of, like this one, which she explained today. She's not going to pick her own Secretary of Education, no. That job will go to a 9-year-old transgender child who will pick him.
I'm going to have a Secretary of Education that this young trans person interviews on my behalf. And only if this person believes that our Secretary or Secretary of Education nominee is someone who is committed to creating a welcoming environment, a safe environment, and a full educational curriculum for everyone, will that person actually be advanced to be Secretary of Education? You like that? Let's do that.
Do you like that? Let's do that. And all the woke kids go, ooh. Yes, Warren is so woke she'll even allow a 9-year-old transgender kid to pick the Secretary of Education. Now that's the very definition of insanity. Now to the unwoke so-called woke Warren.
The upside of collapsing political campaigns is they tend to be pretty honest. Once they sense they're losing, a lot of candidates decide to say what they actually think. What the hell, why not? That apparently is where Elizabeth Warren is tonight. With her chances of becoming president having assumed the trajectory of a plane crash, Warren has decided to go full fascist because that's who she is and has always been. Today, Warren released a plan that demands criminal penalties for anyone who posts, quote, disinformation online designed to sway voters. Now, try to ignore the redolent irony here. This is the person who, for years, posted false claims online that she was a Cherokee Indian to sway voters. This is the candidate who pretended she'd lost a job for being pregnant and that her kids went to public school. Now, this very same person is threatening to send you to prison for telling tall tales.
Yes, the so-called woke lady is nothing more than an unwoke fascist.
The most florid liar in the race, someone the New York Times once euphemistically described as a gifted storyteller, says she's going to criminalize lying. Paging Dr. Freud. That is more than hypocrisy. It's a sickness. But let's take Elizabeth Warren's plan seriously for a moment. What exactly is this disinformation she intends to ban? If you guess the answer has something to do with Russia, pour yourself another vodka. According to Warren's press release today, quote, the same tactics employed by the Russian government are just as easily accessible to domestic groups seeking to promote or oppose candidates and political or social issues. Okay, but what does that mean? Well, it means that when people say things that Elizabeth Warren doesn't like or that impede her attempts to accumulate power, they should go to jail.
She sounds a bit like our so-called woke Ardern to me. Now, folks, I'll finish today on a positive note. Brexit has finally begun. The UK finally departed from the EU, albeit there's still a lot of work to do. And the Democrats' bogus impeachment is finally coming to an end. Mind you, we can expect to see some more anonymous leaks coming out over the next few days.